Right, hello YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's time once again. Let us talk the metal. Yeah. Tonight will be collection update night. I haven't done one in a little bit. I've got some thank yous for some VCLT that I definitely want to cover. And I have found some neat and interesting things out and about in the wild and ordered a couple of things. So I figured I'd roll it all together and let folks see what has been showing up lately. Folks always seem to like the collection update videos. It's kind of interesting that people get so excited to watch other people and see what they have bought. It's like, wow, you bought that. It's like, yeah, seems like it'd be more fun if you bought it. But yeah, people really like watching them. So it's fun to do them from time to time. First off, I've had a couple of VCLT things come in the mail, so definitely need to give shout outs there. First to Rick. Hope you're doing well these days, my friend. Y'all know Rick Contreras, I hope, over at the Dreadful Minutes channel. Really talented graphics artist, super nice guy, one of the nicest folks I know in heavy metal circles, period. He sent me a few things a while back that's pretty cool. I haven't gotten to check all of them out in detail yet. As you're going to see, things have piled up here a little bit recently, but did want to say thank you very much, Rick, and show off what he sent my way. So a CD by a band called Season of Mourning, which I'm not familiar. I've played this one once or twice, hasn't really clicked yet, so I don't have too much to say on this one. But yeah, interesting. Had not heard of this band before whatsoever. Also, a CD by a band called Altar of Beetlejuice, as in the star, not the Tim Burton movie. But yeah, didn't know this one either. Kind of interesting, doomy flavored material here with yeah, some different sort of more progressive leanings to it. So it's got my interest. Played it a few times. I'm like, huh, that's kind of different, kind of cool. Liking that as well. So Altar of Beetlejuice. Let's see, there are a couple of vinyl items from Rick as well. A Sacred Oath album called 12 Bells. Sacred Oath did an album, Crystal Vision Revealed, back in sort of the classic late 80s time frame. And they were another band that had gotten back together and have done several albums, and I just never followed up on them. So yeah, Rick had one of them and sent it my way. So thanks, Rick. I've played it once or twice. It sounds like, pretty good, straightforward, standard heavy metal, cool brown vinyl, and even came with a CD. So yeah, always cool when the labels do the vinyl and the CD together. So neat to finally hear what Sacred Oath has been up to in recent years. And also this one from Rick, Assembly at Dusk, which apparently the band just did a couple of demo recordings and then put them both together on the album. This one sounds pretty cool. At first listen, reminds me a little bit of a lot of the kind of Maryland doom scene kind of material, stuff that you'd hear, from all the bands like Revelation, Pentagram, all the bands that were sort of active in the DC area, back in the day. But yeah, definitely have liked this one. It's clicked the fastest of the ones that Rick sent. So Rick, thank you very much, buddy. Very kind of you to send those out. All right, one other VCLT shout out to do from Marty over at the Marty Worm channel. In his continuing quest to get folks to appreciate Andy Darris era Halloween, Marty sent me one that I had never heard and barely even remember seeing out and about in the wild. This is Gambling with the Devil. It is from, I believe, was it 2014? That sounds too late. No, 2007. 2007 on this one. Given this one several spins, it's taken a little while to sink in. It's a pretty long album at 12 tracks and 4 bonus tracks. And little layout complaint to labels and stuff. You've got all your song titles scrunched into this much space, and then you're doing absolutely nothing with the bottom half of that back tray card. Make it bigger, space it out, for goodness sake. There's no need to have all the print squashed into such a little spot. But that little thing aside, and the fact that, yes, it's another horrible CGI Halloween cover from the 2000s. I don't know who the art director was, but man, they were not doing the band any favors. Musically, though, it's still a pretty solid album. It's taken several spins for this one to sink in. It strikes me as being a bit more on the heavier and faster side, which certainly isn't a bad thing. But yeah, there are a lot of good tunes on here. It's just taken a little while to process all of them. But yeah, if you like your Halloween with Andy Darris on the faster and heavier side of things, Gambling with the Devil is one that should appeal to you. So appreciate it, Marty. we're working our way through the Halloween Andy Dare's catalog. I've got one of the others ordered, hasn't come in just yet, but that might be in the next update. Okay, so those are the VCLTs that I definitely wanted to say thank you for. Next up, some random things that I have ordered lately. Hopefully y'all have seen the 2 streams that Marty and I did with King Fowley going through the Black Sabbath catalog. So it was a lot of fun reconnecting with King. Hadn't talked to him in years. And yeah, we did what I thought was a really excellent 2-part deep dive going through all the albums. And one that struck me while I was, kind of replaying, freshening up on a few of the albums I hadn't played for several years, as being quite good and better than I'd remembered it, was The Eternal Idol. This was an album that I liked the first few times I heard it and then kind of soured on over time. But having replayed it recently, it's like, no, this is actually still a very strong album. And it's an interesting one because the band had recorded it with Ray Gillen on vocals, but then Ray was out of the band and they redid the vocals with Tony Martin. And there were 2 versions of it out there. And I didn't have either of them. So I was just like, I should fix that. So yeah, I poked around and found a good price on the Eternal Idol, the expanded deluxe edition, which has, disc 1 has Tony Martin singing the tracks, and disc 2 has the Ray Gillen versions of the tracks. So yeah, that's a nice package that I will definitely pick up, and happy to have that one on the shelf. I actually like both renditions of the album. Tony's probably got the better voice overall, I'd say, but you can tell this material wasn't written with him in mind. So it's not that he does a bad job on it. You can just tell it's a little off from what he probably would have written for himself to sing. And I do like Ray's voice, and I think he did a really good job on the tracks. So this is a rare case where both versions work equally well. Okay, next up, a couple of things. Had to order some stuff from Amazon recently, getting closer to the holiday season, and I'm trying to get holiday shopping done early, avoid a lot of the postal snarls and backups that we know have been a real issue for a while now. And in doing so, I had a lot of Amazon points built up. Every now and then you have to add something to an order to get it over $25 to get the free shipping. So a couple of CDs I'd picked up in passing. Got one, the first Vector CD, Black Future. Now I know this is a band that, fell apart under really sketchy circumstances, which was a shame. They were doing some really cool music. Didn't have this one on disc. I do gotta say, Earache, for God's sake, do a better job on your CD issues. I am not buying any more Earache CDs. I mean, if all you can be bothered to do is this, no book, no insert, no nothing, screw you, Earache. I'm not paying for this kind of stuff again. Musically, it's good, nothing wrong with that, but you can put a little more effort into it than that, Earache. I'm pretty sure you have the means to make a better quality CD release than that. Also from Amazon, I finally got an album I always wanted back in the day and just never could come across it, never saw it on mail order stuff, and eventually it faded from memory. I think it was Ben over on Brain Smashers channel that sort of got this one back to the front of my mind. It's Unanimated, Ancient God of Evil. Unanimated was one, I read the reviews about this back in the mid-90s, thought, yeah, that sounds pretty good. That's probably going to appeal to me. Just never could find it. They didn't get much promotion at all from the record label. The stuff, if it showed up, it was always going to be as an import. So I'd just never gotten it. But these have been reissued. And so I want to get that added in. So was happy to get Unanimated's Ancient God of Evil finally. And if you're going to get one unanimated, why not get both? Now, next couple of CDs I ordered from Discogs with one of my favorite sellers over there, Gary at the Heavy Metal Museum. I've talked about him in previous unboxing videos and such. He's always got lots of cool stuff, more stuff than I can afford to buy. But a couple of things I got from him recently. First unanimated disc, In the Forest of Dreaming Dead. So this was another one that I always wanted it. I think I saw it at one local store, but they had the import price tag on it. I didn't buy it. Somebody else bought it pretty quick, never had another shot at it. So yeah, I was glad to get this reissue too. The unanimated, especially on this one, they're channeling their inner dissection quite a bit, which, hey, if you're going to copy someone a little bit, copy one of the better bands. So yeah, cool atmospheres on here, very much in that sort of Swedish death black hybrid style. That's really, really good. Another disc I got from Gary in that order was a recent anthology release by a new wave of British heavy metal band called Wicked Vicar, which has the absolute most bestest misspelling of a band name from anybody in the 80s. Always liked the way they mangled that. Wicked Vicar is very much one of those cases of a band that made one obscure single and not much else. There may have been a couple of demo recordings here and there. They had one track on one compilation on the Ebony label, and that was about it for Wicked Vicar. But I always liked the single, especially the song Black of the Night. I think it's one of the really strong new wave of British heavy metal tunes. So was really surprised to see that, yeah, Cult Metal Classics had gotten an entire anthology worth of stuff spliced together with some, a live track here, some demo recordings there, another track they had recorded that could have been on the Ebony compilation. I think it was the Metallic Storm compilation, if I remember right. Ebony did a bunch of new wave of British heavy metal comp albums, and to be honest, they can run together pretty badly, but I'm pretty sure they were on Metallic Storm. So yeah, they got a good 10 tracks put together, and so Wicked Vicar gets the anthology treatment. This is really telling you there is no band that is too small or too obscure to avoid the anthology treatment. If they've got a handful of recordings and a label can contact them, it can happen. It's cool that it happened. Now, is this a great listen overall? I would say it's pretty average. Bands like this, where they had a very short lifespan, they didn't have an opportunity to record much material to begin with. And there's going to be some, average or subpar songs in that set list. So, is this, just raging banger after banger after banger? No, it's not. Are there some other good tracks on it besides Black of the Night? Yeah, there are. In particular, the track Phoenix is a really good one. I wish that had appeared on vinyl back in the day. But there's also some decent liner notes, from the band. One of the band members is on YouTube and has some videos related to Wicked Vicar, which is also cool. So yeah, if you really like these obscure new wave of British heavy metal acts the way I do, this one I'd say is a reasonable purchase. Nothing on here is going to set your ears on fire and redefine the genre for you, but this one is worth checking out. Some of these anthologies are a little too skimpy, or the other unreleased material is very mediocre. This one, I'm happy I picked it up. I do not mind that I paid to buy that one. So thanks, Gary. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to pull it out, but I did also get a vinyl item from Gary. It's the Future Tense, one of their 2 LP reissues of their Condemned to the Gallows EP from back in the 80s. They're one of the bands I talked about when Marty and I did the recent stream looking at metal from different regions, and we were joined by Simon from Explosive Action. Future Tense was one of those bands from the Netherlands that put out one of the better EPs from that scene. A couple of songs that have a really cool doomy vibe to them, and the original is hard to get and kind of pricey, but Gary had a nice anthology collection with that and a couple of their demos also on vinyl. So I picked that up as well. And it's a nice package, a nice listen for sure. So yeah, if you like your mid-80s European metal with a little bit of a doomy flair to it and a little bit of a speedy flair to it on other tracks, the Future Tense collection is a really good one to get. Okay, next up, I visited the local record stores thinking, I haven't been by, maybe I'll find something. Yeah, found a few things. So let's look through those real quick. So at one of the local used bookstores that always, has a pretty good turnover for music as well, picked up a copy of Testaments, Practice What You Preach. This is one I've owned several times over the years, but currently didn't have a CD copy of it. For $5.75, yes, I will pick that back up. It's probably my favorite album from their original run. I know a lot of people gravitate towards the Legacy, but I always thought Practice What You Preach was kind of their tightest album. So happy to put that back on the CD shelf. They had an Iron Savior CD sitting in the used bin, which is kind of odd, not the type of thing they typically get in. I had never even seen this Iron Savior CD. This, of course, was the brainchild originally of Kai Hansen working with, I'll probably butcher the name, Piet Silk, who was one of Kai's mates way back in the day, who worked on, sort of early pre-versions of Halloween, but then, got out of recording or playing music and got more into like, the studio side of things for a living. And then, yeah, they put Iron Savior together as a band in the late 90s. The first Iron Savior album was really, really great, very strong stuff. They started putting albums very quickly. And it was one of those cases where I felt like if the band had slowed down, the albums might have been better, that they were churning them out so fast. It felt like they were very samey. The second album sounded a lot like the third, which sounded a lot like the fourth. And so I kind of lost interest. It's just like, these are very cookie cutter. They weren't bad. It just felt like I was hearing the same album every time. This is their 8th album. I think this one's from 2014. Haven't heard it before. I've been meaning to go back and check out some stuff by the band again. And so, yeah, we'll see how this one called Arise of the Hero turns out. Okay, next in the used bookstore bin, the first Vixen CD. Vixen, I've always had a soft spot for them. Were they the most talented of the hair metal bands of the 80s? Certainly not, but thought their vocalist had a good voice. And they were very good at writing this sort of, catchy MTV style hair metal songs that I like. This, of course, has, Edge of a Broken Heart on it, which, moderate hit for them back in the day and still gets airplay. I've had the Vixen albums on CD before, purged them at some point. For $5, yes, I'm absolutely happy to put that back on the CD shelf. No problems there. All right, the last 2 CDs I got at the used bookstore. A little odd. A lot of people talk about this band and really, note them as like one of their favorites from the 90s. And I'm familiar with their radio hits, but I've never really dug into them a lot. I've heard the albums. They'd never really clicked with me. But I guess the time was right to finally give them a chance. And I'm talking about Alice in Chains. So they had a copy of Facelift. Once again, $5. It's like, you know what? For $5, I will give it a fair shake. I've heard it before. The band never really clicked. It's not that they were awful. They just weren't quite my thing. By the time Alice in Chains came out, I was very firmly established as a true bona fide heavy metal fan. And of course, Alice in Chains is heavy, but I don't think they really would be called heavy metal by a lot of folks. So they kind of feel just a little outside my comfort zone always. But yeah, a lot of folks, are very big on the band, and it's been ages since I heard an entire album by them. So I figured for $5, okay, let's sit down, see if it clicks this time. And if that one doesn't, hey, they had Dirt for $5 as well. Sure, just ring them both up. And if nothing else, I'll be able to say I gave them a fair shake, came back, revisited. If I don't like them, they can go in a VCLT box to somebody. That'll be just fine. But yeah, not the kind of thing, I'm really planning to buy, but at $5 a piece, that's when you can take a chance on them, and it's okay if they don't work out. Or who knows, maybe this time they will click and be like, oh gosh, I finally get it. We'll find out. Okay, so then made it to the other sort of local record store over in Greenville. Greenville, I get out and about every now and then in that area. And stopped by Pharmacy Records, which had a couple of neat things as well. Had a used copy of Fate's Warning's Disconnected. I don't think I ever heard this album. I remember when it came out. It's the one that came out after Pleasant Shade of Grey, so it came out right around 2000. Maybe I heard this and it just didn't impress me at the time. Fate's Warning was definitely changing directions, as they typically do. But I actually couldn't remember if I'd heard this or not. And for $6, once again, I'll give it a fair shake. If it's one if I had heard it, I don't remember a thing about it. So it's a time to revisit it. we'll see. The other thing they had on the shelf, which was pretty cool, they'd never had anything by this band before, except for a couple of split CDs. They had a copy of Panopticon's Social Disservices, and this is one of the copies on clear splatter vinyl. I like this album by Panopticon a lot. It's a very dark, very disturbing album with the subject matter and such. You know, Austin really obviously pours a lot into it. There's the vinyl pattern, really cool looking. And yeah, I think, you know, from his earlier albums, I'm not going to say it's my favorite. I think it's definitely the darkest. It's sort of, you know, got the, you know, best, you know, black metal flair to it. In terms of tone and just really overall oppressiveness, it reminds me of things like Order Ad Chaos from Mayhem. So really good album. I did not have a vinyl copy of it. I had a CD copy of it. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have a vinyl copy of it. But if I do, it's a different pressing. It's not the clear vinyl one with the splatter. So it's like, oh, yes, I'll definitely take that. Okay, one more record store stop recently was over in near Clemson, South Carolina. One of the next towns over is where Yesterday's Records is at. I've talked about Yesterday's before. Found some really good metal vinyl there in the past. The owner, Mike West, is a really cool guy. He goes to a lot of record shows, and you know, so he's always getting new stuff in. I only get over that way maybe, you know, not even once a month. It's, you know, just I don't get over into that, you know, corner of South Carolina very often. But, you know, when I do, I always make it a point to stop by and see how he's doing, see what he's got. And when I stopped by recently, he had just gotten back from the big record show in Austin, Texas, that they hold every year. That's widely considered, you know, the biggest record show in the country. And so, yeah, I was chatting to him about how the trip went. He's like, yeah, I brought back a whole lot of heavy metal stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll dig through the boxes. And yeah, he had found a lot of really cool stuff. A lot of stuff, you know, examples. He had, you know, an original press of Anthrax Fistful of Metal, Exodus, Pleasures of the Flesh, stuff that, yeah, again, I'm still used to thinking like, oh yeah, those are, you know, straightforward, easy to find things, except they're not anymore. They haven't been for a long time. You know, they're the kind of things I remember seeing at record shows for $5 a piece, but that was in 1994 or something. Times have changed a bit since then. He'd even found some new wave of British heavy metal stuff. He had a copy of the Split Beaver When Hell Won't Have You album that I would have picked up. The cover, you know, had, you know, some condition issues. It's like, that could be cool, but I think I'll pass on that one. He had one of the Blade Runner albums. So, you know, wide assortment of neat stuff. And I did pick up a handful of things. So let's go. Got this one, Explorers, Symphonies of Steel. This is an old one on Metal Blade Records, the classic Metal Blade logo there. Always love that logo, Metal Blade, probably my favorite record label of my formative years. This is a cool sort of, it's a traditional metal band with progressive leanings. They remind me a little bit of stuff like Culprit, some of the bands from the Seattle sound that were kind of emulating Queensryche a little bit. So straightforward metal, but trying to be a little high-minded about it. Some tracks hit really well, some don't. I had this album, but not this pressing of it. This is an odd one. The Metal Blade pressing, it's on Metal Blade and Restless, I think, is actually the third pressing. They all came out, you know, within a year of one another. But before Metal Blade licensed it, it was released on Black Dragon with a very different and very weird cover. I've never quite known what to make of this cover. It reminds me a little bit of the color scheme and layout of like Manila Gates. Yeah, Manila Roads Open the Gates, but and definitely, you know, not quite the same. Not sure what to make of that. So I've had the album for a long time with this version, but I always thought, you know, the Metal Blade version, the cover is a little more striking. So was yeah, really happy to see that on the shelf. I hadn't seen a copy of it in ages. And interestingly enough, the album comes in a third version. Even the Black Dragon's not the original press. It was originally just one of these self-released deals on their own little I think they called it Hot, Hard, and Heavy Records. And it's got more of a purple and blue color scheme with like a lady drawn holding a sword. The art is kind of amateurish, but that's the actual original pressing of it, which is much harder to find even than those two versions. So yeah, cool album. Now that I've got two covers, do I have to go buy the third one? But find it for a good price, I probably would. It's the kind of record that unfortunately tends to run up in the three figures these days, and it's not something I want to pay $200 for. I don't need a third copy that badly. I'm not that sick. All right, other stuff Mike had. St. Vitus, Thirsty and Miserable EP. Brought this back from Austin. Actually bought it from the drummer, St. Vitus, who was there and had a bunch of vinyl. And yeah, Mike bought some of his stuff. He also had a sealed copy of Hallow's Victim, the second album, which looked really nice. I already have that. I didn't really see the need to buy another sealed copy, but was still very cool. I just didn't have this EP by the band, so was like, yeah, I'll pick that up. Always like St. Vitus. He had a couple of Budgie albums. Budgie albums always have a few good songs on them. They can be a little hit or miss. So I picked up a copy of Impeccable. I made a little mistake with this one. I was thinking this was their second album when I saw it flipping through the racks, which I don't have the second album. The second one is Squawk, not Impeccable. It's got the second one has the plane on the cover, not the cat. So yeah, this one's a little later from '78. I've never heard this album. I've never heard Squawk either. But yeah, I was buying this thinking, oh, cool, there's the second one. I don't have that. It kind of fills in a gap in the run of Budgie albums. This one kind of creates a new gap in the run of Budgie albums I have, but looking forward to checking it out anyway. Oh yeah, this one. I've seen somebody show this one off on a live stream before, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was. But I have a demo. I've had a demo by the band for years. It's a thrash band out of the Boston area called Executioner, and had never seen a copy of the album in person before. In the name of metal. Whoever had shown it off, I'm pretty sure it's when we were goofing about really cheesy covers. Because yeah, this one saw the original version of Fate's Warning's Night on Brocken and said, but wait a minute, we can make a cover that bad too. But yeah, the demo I've heard before is actually pretty good. It's kind of very rough and ready thrash metal, pretty rough around the edges, but catchy. I liked it. And so I saw it. I was like, huh, never seen that out and about before. Yeah, okay, we'll pick that up. It's one of them on New Renaissance. They made a second album, and the second album I've never heard either. It gets terrible reviews. I can't remember the fellow's name, but the second album, one of the guys in that band on the second album would go on to be in bands like Anal Cunt and some other more sort of extreme metal bands. I'm blanking on his name right now. He's not on this first album. He was only on the second album, which came out the next year in '87. Not to the bottom of the stack just yet. Mike also had a copy of the live Holocaust album, Live Hot Curry and Wine. I had this digital copy, but didn't have a vinyl copy of it. And it's a pretty good live recording. The funny deal with this is it was recorded in '81. I think it was September '81 at a show in Scotland where the band was from. But the album didn't come out until '83. By the time the album came out, the band had already disintegrated. Some members had gone on and were recording under the name Hologram. And so the label, kind of just a small local affair called Phoenix Records, we figured, well, we released a few live tracks from that recording as a 7-inch EP. They had released it as a video, which was pretty ambitious at the time. And so, like, well, we can squeeze one more recording out of Holocaust's catalog. Let's put the whole show out on vinyl, or most of the show. It's not the whole show. And it actually ended up selling extremely well, to the point that the label went and talked to the guys, was able to get John Mortimer to kind of come back out of retirement, put together a new version of Holocaust, and release a second studio LP in 1984 called No Man's Land, which is one of the most atrocious things. Most folks, I try not to be too harsh on albums except when I'm intentionally being harsh on albums. The No Man's Land album is one of those that nobody has anything good to say about. It's just a very dull, flat album. It really, when you know the backstory, it's just like, oh, okay, they kind of pulled the guy out of retirement and just like, please put something together. Like, okay, whatever, here you go. It shows. Now Holocaust, a few years after that, John Mortimer would recruit, new lineup, take the band in a new direction, and release some stuff that did get no small amount of acclaim. They went in a little bit more of sort of a Voivod influenced direction on some later recordings. I'm not real familiar with the later recordings, but yeah, the live album is the last of the sort of classic early lineup of Holocaust. So yeah, I was glad to pick that up. All right, two more that I picked up. If you haven't figured it out by now, yeah, my wallet has been on fire the past week. I'm going to have to take it easy on that for a while. But he had two more things on the shelf that definitely had to pick up. One of them, another Metal Blade classic, original pressing of Spectre Within. This, of course, one of the really highly acclaimed John Arch albums with the band. It has some amazing tracks on it. I've never ranked this one quite as high as some folks do. I do like several of the tracks on it. I've got The Apparition is amazing. Traveler in Time is spectacular. It's got some good tracks on it. There are a few that I feel miss a little bit. To me, this has always felt like a transition album. It still has a little bit of the very straightforward, nondescript stuff they did from Night on Brocken, but they're starting to get a lot more ambitious, moving towards what they would do on Awaken the Guardian. And yeah, it's sometimes it works. Like I said, on The Apparition, it's perfect. On Traveler in Time, it's great. On some other tracks, they're still working the kinks out a little bit. The closing track, Epitaph, it's like 11 minutes long, and it doesn't ever really grab you or build up the way that you expect it to. It's not a horrible song. It's just, for an 11-minute epic closer, it's not quite epic enough, maybe. So, but still, I've had CD presses of this. I'd never had this one on vinyl before. One of those classic gorgeous Metal Blade covers. I'm thinking this might end up on the wall behind me back there. So you, heir apparent, I'm looking at you. Your time might be up. It might be time for you to rotate off the wall. Because yeah, I think this is going to look pretty sharp back there. And then last but not least, I also had this one. I had to bring this one home. Awaken the Guardian. Here, the band really fully realizes that vision of going, beyond traditional metal and getting into something very unique. It's lots of progressive flavors about it. And yeah, really amazing album. It's got, the track Guardian in particular is one of the most fantastic heavy metal songs ever recorded. I remember, maybe a year or so ago, they actually played it on, I think, the Liquid Metal station. I just pulled the car over to the side of the road, just like, I can't drive and listen to this. I just have to stop and pay attention to this song. It's one of the most beautiful and thought-provoking and soul-searching heavy metal tracks I've ever heard. The band, at the height of their powers, all of these two have the lyric inserts, the original picture sleeves with them and stuff like that. So I was really happy to see this. This one I did have on vinyl once upon a time. And it was sort of a funny story. The copy I had was autographed by the band, but it was autographed by the lineup from the Pleasant Shade of Grey tour. A buddy, I saw them on that tour, and one of my buddies in Texas had seen them too, and he managed to get the band to autograph a copy, and I don't know if he gave it or sold it to the girl I was dating at the time, and then she gave it to me as a birthday present. If he sold it to her, he didn't charge very much for it, which was really, was a great present. It was always a little weird having it signed by a lineup of the band that had very little to do with the album. The copy of the album also didn't play very well. It was not terribly beat up, but it was kind of scratchy. It had a lot of background noise in the vinyl. And this is one of those albums with John Arch's just clarion voice. you don't want a lot of background hiss and pops and crackle in the vinyl. It really detracted from trying to play the album. And it had the weird, it was a weird mismatch of having the signatures on the cover that weren't the lineup. So yeah, I had eventually, gotten rid of it long after I'd broken up with her. So yeah, it was actually kind of cool to get this one back on vinyl. I've had it on different CD pressings over the years too, but that one now, well, this would also look kind of cool on the wall back there. I think Spectre will beat it out. If I'm going to rotate somebody off the wall, I think Spectre's first in line to get the new slot. So yeah, that was not a cheap trip to yesterday's. Mike is very fair with his prices and everything. But again, these albums are not $5 a piece anymore. It is no longer 1995. And sometimes, geezers like myself, we forget how hard these things have gotten to come by, especially in the wild. But no, I was very happy to pick all those up, got them for a fair price, and yeah, working my way through the stack. Haven't played all of them yet, but we are getting there. But that is enough about that. So now let's talk metal in the comments down below. What kind of stuff have you picked up recently that you're really excited to finally get your hands on? Is there anything you're hoping to order, or maybe something that you're putting on your holiday wish list that maybe a friend or significant other can pick up for you and have waiting under the tree or whatever you set up to decorate with during the holidays? Let me know in the comments down below. For me personally, my wife is looking at ordering a certain book that David has coming out in the very near future. It's about a band from Florida. Most of you have probably heard of it. Looking forward to seeing that in print. And my wife's like, yep, I will order it if as soon as the pre-orders are going. So that's what I might be reading during the holiday break. All right. Until next time, everybody take care. And as always, keep banging your head.